In the noble pursuit of science, if one attacks another for simply making an inquiry or asking a question, you can be sure that that individual is not, in any way, shape, or form, engaging in the scientific method. Period.
Bitch, you and I are not gonna get along.
32 minutes past the hour. Lift up on Apollo 11.
Marty has here a 1 hour and 13-minute monstrosity of a video that is so full of padding that there is no way for me to talk about every point that he makes in detail. Instead, I'm going to take a slightly different approach to this video, and I'm going to take the parts that I find to be the most egregious and talk about those. Marty's 12-minute intro is mostly platitudes and vapid mouth noises. There is very little of substance here. However, there are a couple of things that I do want to point out. The first of which is the way that Marty likes to quote people.
First of all, if you're a fucking guy that's making YouTube videos about the earth being flat, that shit isn't research. It's just not. It's not. You're not a scientist. You're not wearing a lab coat. You don't work for a major university. Just because you're some fucking jack-off alone in your room obsessing about nonsense, that's not research.
Damn, I'd hate to be one of those fucking guys on YouTube making a video on the flat earth who obviously has nothing important to say.
Now, I don't understand any of this numerology nonsense, but my guess is that because Joe Rogan said not important, that it actually communicates a secret message about Trinity and the Holy Grail and how he must not find those things important or something. I'm not fucking sure. But here's the thing. Joe Rogan never used the word important. The only one so far who has brought up the word important is Marty himself. So Marty himself is saying that the word important has all these other meanings and that we should keep an eye on it, I guess, because other people are using the word important, except that the person that he quoted never actually said the word important. And really, this just gives you an idea at how sloppy Marty is when it comes to quoting people. I don't understand what the point is of bringing up the word important and all this numerology bullshit with it if nobody but Marty has actually used the word important.
So what do we do about this problem? Well, the best way I have always learned to get to the bottom of things is to apply the scientific method, using reason and logic as my guides to make tangible the best answers to the proposed questions at hand. Our litmus test will be A. Are we using the scientific method, not relying on preconception or bias to arrive at our conclusions? Or B. Have we failed at such a noble objective?
Now, at face value, I agree with Marty. I agree that we should use the scientific method to determine reality, that we should try to get rid of our biases to determine what is actually real, not what we just think is real. So Marty and I agree at the importance of using the scientific method, of trying not to be biased, which means that the next sentence is quite shocking.
This video is not intended to be an unbiased scientific investigation because ultimately that investigation rests in your hands and in the hands of the community at large.
So even though Marty thinks that the best method to find reality is the scientific method, he's still not going to use it in this video. And I bring this up because I knew that he wasn't going to use the scientific method. After all, he comes to the conclusion that the earth is flat. But I find it funny that he pays lip service to the scientific method just to make us believe like he might actually be a scientifically, skeptically minded individual. Also that later in his own video he can be like, yeah, science is cool, but I'm just gonna not do it this time because reasons. Finally, we have this gem of a statement.
We must always keep emblazoned in our minds the understanding that ridicule, belittlement, derision, disparaging and derogatory remarks, ad hominem attacks, and the like have no place within scientific inquiry, nor in social civility. In the noble pursuit of science, if one attacks another for simply making an inquiry or asking a question, you can be sure that that individual is not, in any way, shape, or form, engaging in the scientific method. Period.
Bitch, all you are doing is poisoning the well. And I find it hilarious that someone who's all for integrity in his intro to his video starts by poisoning the well. I love how you lump together ad hominem attacks and insults. When I call you a bitch, that's an insult. When I say you are wrong because you're a bitch, that's an ad hominem. One is an actual logical fallacy. The other one is me just being an asshole. I love how you stick both of these together as if to say that all insults are just like ad hominems and they are logical fallacies. Bitch, they are not. The other thing that you need to realize is that I don't call you a bitch because you're asking question. I call you a bitch because you're dishonest, and I'm going to show that. I will call you a bitch because the answers to the questions that you are asking are readily available, but you refuse to look into it. Even though you say that you're all for science, you still belittle the people who work at it and then turn around and say that that's not what real science just because it doesn't align with your world view. That is why you get called a bitch. Now, Marty's first point in this video isn't actually a point. He just sort of presents both the heliocentric and the geocentric models. As far as I can tell, there's really nothing wrong with his representation of the heliocentric model, so I'm going to give him a pass on it. And I don't know about the geocentric model because, like I've stated numerous times before, there is no unified geocentrist theory. It's sort of a mishmash of whatever the individual at that time believes. So I don't know if he's right or wrong. Flat earthers, you all fucking tell him, not me. For point 2, Marty just brings up that old canard, it looks flat. And he does actually say that there is an explanation given, but he's not satisfied with it.
The best explanation from those in the heliocentric camp explain this occurrence by the fact that no one has just gotten high enough in elevation to see the curvature, due to the immensity of the Earth. The horizon only looks flat because we are seeing a very small portion of the massive Earth. Pics from NASA and other space agencies also show the curvature of the Earth as well. Personally, I must say that, though the heliocentric explanation at first hand may seem plausible, it is not consistent with the math as given to us by spherical geometry. People all over the world, myself included, have reported seeing distances that, according to the basic mathematics of a sphere that has an equator of roughly 25,000 miles or so, should just not be visible. Objects 20, 30, 60 miles away and further have been spotted, many of which at sea level, that just should not be seen according to the math. Ships that have supposedly sailed over the curvature of the Earth, when zoomed in with a telephoto lens, can clearly be seen, which is completely inconsistent with the heliocentric or globular Earth perspective.
The problem here, Marty, is that you don't actually give examples. All you say is people have seen, people claim, and that's it. That's all you have to show for it. Even though you show this picture of the math with the numbers and all that, you don't actually do any of it, making us believe that you might actually understand the math and might actually do the math, but you never demonstrate it. So all you have is a bunch of people have said X, therefore it is true. I'm gonna call bullshit on that. You are making claims and you are not bothering to back them up. And any claim that is made without evidence to it can just easily be dismissed without evidence. The examples that you do give, a picture of a city and then a video of a ship going over the horizon, are hilarious because you say, look, we can see them even though they are too far away. And yet you fail to see the fact that they are obviously being cut off at the bottom, so you can only see the top of these buildings and the top of the ship, very much aligning itself with the model in which the Earth is curved, where things go behind the horizon bottom up. Not just that, but if you take a look of the video of the ship going over the horizon, you'll notice that it's kind of floating in the air. This almost makes it seem like it's a mirage, which is a very special occasion in which you can actually see further than you should be able to. Not just that, but for both your images here, you don't actually give us at what distance we're looking at these objects for, and you don't give us a distance at how far we are from the objects, nor how tall the objects are, so there's actually no way for us to test the claims that you are making. You are simply just making claims while providing absolutely no way for us to check the claims that you are making. Marty's third point is about the hotspot found in this video and how it's okay to just accept things because they appear a certain way.
We can clearly see in one part of the footage that the sun makes a hotspot on the Earth. The question this video poses is, if the sun is 93 million miles away from the Earth as claimed by modern astronomers, then how in the world is the sun creating a singular, circular, very clear hotspot on the Earth? The Flat Earth proponents explain this simply by saying the sun is not 93 million miles away. It is actually rather close, and so this phenomenon we see makes perfect sense. If the sun is 93 million miles away, then the rays that would reach the Earth would engulf the Earth equally and be parallel to one another, as shown in this graphic.
Marty's third point is about this video where you see a reflection of the sun in the clouds, and he says that because of this, the sun must be close. Problem is, he doesn't actually explain this very well, so I have absolutely no idea what he's talking about. He talks about how this would be impossible if sunlight was reaching us at a 90-degree angle, and I don't understand how reflections are impossible at 90-degree angles. This would mean that at noon you could never see a reflection of the sun. Ever, I guess. I don't know. And that's the problem. I don't know what he's talking about. So at the end, the only thing that I can think of is that the sun appears close, and the reflection of it appears to be right below the sun. And so you get this appearance that it's nearby, but there's nothing else to it besides the fact that it appears close. And this is honestly just stupid thinking. To give you an example, in this image, the sun appears to be touching the water, and its reflection appears to be coming at us from the sun because the sun appears to be touching the water. Therefore, we should say that the sun is obviously touching the water, and this is the only way this reflection could exist, is if the sun was touching the water. And of course, this is absolutely ludicrous. In Marty's fourth point, he wants to talk about crepuscular rays. And once again, he demonstrates how much he's willing to accept something just because it looks a certain way in pictures.
In this picture, we see the rays of the sun bursting through the clouds, and it is very easy to see that the rays converge to a point that seems to exist just beyond the clouds. Many people experience this phenomenon every single day, and I must say that personally it is quite a beautiful and magical sight. We must conclude that if the sun is 93 million miles away, the rays that would reach the Earth at a 90-degree angle, with all rays parallel to one another, as just mentioned. The Flat Earth community explains this occurrence by the fact that the sun is close to the Earth, once again roughly 3,000 or so miles away, and the viewable light is converging directly back to the sun itself.
So Marty's biggest complaint is that because the rays of the sun should be hitting us at 90-degree angles, that we shouldn't be able to see them at different angles coming from what appears to be a single source fairly close by. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a hard time thinking of a phenomenon that makes parallel lines look like they are not parallel and are convergent on us. It's fucking perspective, bitch. That thing that you and all other flat earthers rely on to talk about the setting sun is the reason why crepuscular rays appear to be divergent from one another. Because of perspective. This is a legitimate phenomenon that is caused by perspective. Not just that. If we were to take, say, the picture that you showed us, in this picture, right back here, where the rays appear to be going down straight, that is where noon should be. According to you, there is noon. Now, depending on the pictures that you find of crepuscular rays, sometimes the difference between where the sun is on the horizon and where the rays of light appear to be directly below it can be quite interesting. So, for example, in this image, according to you, because the sun is where it appears to be, and if we were to take all these lines and converge them, then this point here, this point only a few, miles away from shore, it is noon there, while it is obviously not noon from where the photograph is being taken. You are telling me that I can literally see a couple of time zones away, and it happens to be only 10 miles away from the shoreline. This is just ridiculous, Marty. But if we use your method of thinking, where if we just take a picture and then go with what it appears to be instead of actually trying to find out why something is happening, then this is the conclusion we must arrive at. That from this point, we can see noon happening offshore from the photographer. Marty's fifth point is probably the reason that I call him a bitch. And this is the part where you can really tell how incredibly dishonest Marty actually is.
Number 5, NASA and the space agencies of the world. For this one, we are going to ask one simple question. Can NASA and the numerous other space agencies of the world be trusted when it comes to the information that they provide? Most news programs, media outlets, and your average everyday nightly news-watching citizen will accept without question or controversy the claims made by any and all of these space organizations. All of these claims are usually taken at face value without any serious investigative team ever questioning their scientific legitimacy or demanding verifiable proof for the information offered as absolute fact.
Now here, I have to agree with Marty that we should be skeptical of the claims being made. And because you say that we need to stop just blindly accepting claims that are made by others, I expect that every claim you make from here on end is well researched.
This video is said to have been taken by a satellite floating somewhere around 1 million miles from Earth. As you can see, even though the video is supposed to be of a 25-hour period, the shot is perfectly still and the cloud formations hardly, if ever, move in this entire span of time.
Bitch, what did I say about research? What did you say about research? That we need to do our research first, which is why it is so amazing that you got the very basic facts about this video wrong. Let's take a look at what is reported about this animation. These images were taken between 3:50 p.m. and 8:45 p.m. EDT on July 16th. Oh, let me do a little bit of math. 8:45 minus 5:50, that's 25 hours. Oh wait, no it's not. It's 5, you dumb fuck. This is why people get annoyed at flat earthers, Marty. This is why we start cursing and insulting. Because you talk all big about doing your research, about how we shouldn't accept things on face value, and yet right after that sentence, you say stupid shit like this animation is of a 25-hour cycle. Nobody said that besides you, Marty, and a very quick Google search would have demonstrated that to you, which leads me to believe that you never bothered to, or worse, that you did, that you found out that it's only 5 hours and you didn't care, and instead you preferred to lie to your audience.
Besides looking just absolutely fabricated, it must also be noted that the moon crosses a great distance over the Earth in this video, which is completely inconsistent with what we are told the orbit of the moon should take around the Earth, which is a period of approximately 28 days.
No, bitch, the moon does not traverse half of the Earth. It traverses in front of the camera. This is something called parallax. You can do this yourself. You go outside on a full moon, stick your thumb in front of you, and run it over the moon. After doing that, do you think that your thumb has traveled 2,159 miles to make it from one end to the moon to the other? Or do you think it has traveled a few inches to cross in front of it from your point of view? This isn't that complicated, Marty. But the fact that you accepted this being said at face value without doing your research is hilarious after you made such a comment about how people need to stop just taking shit on face value, you hypocritical little bitch.
Also pay attention to the fact that not a single star is seen in the background. Where are they?
God damn it, Marty. Do you even know how cameras work? Cameras have this thing called an aperture. Apertures determine how much light can hit the camera at a time. When it is dark, the aperture can be opened up to allow more light in. When it's really bright, it has to be closed up to allow less light in and preventing overexposure. Now, here's the thing, Marty. The reason you don't get to see stars in this animation is because it's fucking daytime. You are on the day side of the Earth. It's the same reason you don't get to see stars during the day. It's because it is too bright and the dimmer lights of the stars aren't visible. Now, Marty, here's another time I'm going to show you how you can demonstrate this effect to yourself. Here I have a video of a target with small bright lights on it. As you can see that when the camera is focused on just this area, you can see all the details of the target. You can see the letters, you can see the lines. As soon as I move away and focus on something brighter, the lighter white lines disappear. The text becomes much harder to see, and even the bright white that was the target becomes very dark. This is exactly what is happening here. The very bright Earth is so bright that they have to close the aperture of the camera so that the picture isn't overexposed. Otherwise, you would get an image like this, where the Earth is a big white ball. But then you get to see the fucking stars. Now, I'm pretty sure that the satellite wasn't put up there to look at the stars, but was put up there to look at the Earth.
If you take notice, the camera is once again perfectly still, not a nudge, shake, bump, or shift in the viewpoint, which in itself seems completely illogical considering that this was supposed to have been taken from a weather satellite drifting in orbit in the vacuum and infinitude of space.
Oh, you're right, Marty. I forgot about all those bumps and winds that you have in space that would make a camera shake and shift around, right? Because of all the friction of all the stuff that's in the vacuum of space that might make the camera shift. Right, Marty? Point 6 is nothing more than an argument from design. As we all know, this is just an argument from ignorance, so I refuse to spend any time debunking such a childish argument. Marty next wants to talk about Foucault's pendulum. I will give Marty credit here for letting someone else explain what a Foucault pendulum is. It's nice to hear someone who knows what they're talking about explain Foucault's pendulum. My only complaint about the explanation is that he never touches on the predictability of Foucault's pendulum. One of the reasons Foucault's pendulum is considered a proof is how perfectly we can predict its movement. Depending on the latitude where the pendulum is located is how much of a change we see in the pendulum. These predictions are made assuming the Earth is a spinning sphere. If the Earth wasn't a spinning sphere, this prediction couldn't be so accurate.
This rotation of the pendulum's plane, or precession, is actually a prediction of Newtonian mechanics. Using Newton's laws and some vector calculus, you can actually show that the speed and direction of the pendulum's rotation depends only on your latitude. If we measure the time it takes the plane to rotate, we can calculate our latitude and then use that to find our distance from the North Pole. All you need is a watch and a pendulum.
It comes as no surprise that even though we have such a solid proof that is predictable and repeatable, Marty simply throws out this proof to vomit this sentence of idiocy.
Unless my understanding is severely flawed, for the Foucault pendulum science to be correct, and thus be a valid instrument to measure the Earth's spin, that would mean that a helicopter could float above the Earth for 3 hours and arrive at a destination several thousand miles away, which we all know is impossible.
You're right, Marty. I forgot that one physics class where we compared an unguided, energy-independent moving object which is only affected by two forces, and we found out that it is exactly the same as a piloted moving object that uses fuel to create thrust and is subject to the forces of wind and gravity and the thrust it is creating. Maybe I shouldn't be so hard on Marty. After all, he did say that he might not have a good understanding of physics. But honestly, I think he's just saying that to cover his ass. Marty, you have a crappy understanding of physics. I want to take a moment now to talk about the way Marty quotes people. Throughout this video, Marty will insert some quotes by Nikola Tesla, Claudia Pavonis, or Albert Einstein. He never bothers to talk about what he quoted, and many times the quote is unrelated to what was just talked about. For example, at the end of this section, Marty has this quote by Nikola Tesla.
Earth is a realm. It is not a planet. It is not an object. Therefore, it has no edge. Earth would be more easily defined as a system environment. Earth is also a machine. It is a Tesla coil. The sun and the moon are powered wirelessly with the electromagnetic field, or the ether. This field also suspends the celestial spheres with electromagnetic levitation. Electromagnetic levitation disproves gravity because the only force you need to counter is the electromagnetic force, not gravity. The stars are attached to the firmament.
This has absolutely nothing to do with Foucault's pendulum. I can only arrive at the conclusion that Marty is making an appeal to authority. The very same person that earlier complained that NASA is taken as an unquestionable authority is now using Nikola Tesla as an appeal to authority. What is worse is the second quote. I have come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment. Albert Einstein. At a glance, this quote gives the impression that Albert Einstein was a geocentrist. I did what any skeptical-minded individual would do. I looked up the quote, and this is what I found. I want to direct your attention to the period that Marty placed at the end of this sentence. As it turns out, in the original translation, this is a comma, with the phrase, though the Earth is revolving around the sun. You're a dishonest bitch. It's bad enough that you can't be bothered to use an ellipsis. You have to also make it seem as though Albert Einstein believed in geocentrism, all so that you can make an appeal to authority. Point 8 is all about the gravitational constant. I once again have to give Marty credit for letting someone else explain what is going on. He then goes on to rant about how no one is testing the gravitational constant.
It is quite remarkable that all of modern physics is based on an experiment that is not continually being tested and retested to authenticate its veracity. Should there not be a continual Cavendish experiment being conducted to make absolutely sure that this experiment is concrete enough to establish such a fundamental in physics? If investors and governments are willing to spend billions and billions of dollars on CERN, why doesn't modern physics demand such money and focus go to verify one of its fundamental laws?
Marty, being the diligent flat earth researcher that he is, did no research into the subject. Even on the Wikipedia page of the gravitational constants, there are sections talking about how the constant has changed and how there is a constant attempt to make it more accurate. A little bit more digging and you can read about the current experiments to help make the gravitational constant more accurate. Marty would have you believe that Cavendish performed his experiments in his garden shed and nobody ever bothered to check his work. You're a lying bitch, Marty. The science for determining the gravitational constant is there. It is updated, it is debated, it is under constant scrutiny. While point 9 is called an analysis of a time-lapse video of the sun, no analysis is done. In fact, Marty barely talks about the video. Instead, he simply promotes P-Brain's video. If Marty can't be bothered to talk about his 9th point, then neither can I. Marty's last point is on the astrolabe, a genuinely cool device that has many uses and is clearly a reflection of human ingenuity. Throughout his whole section, Marty uses incredibly deceptive language. Marty would have you believe that an astrolabe from thousands of years ago could be used today accurately. This is a lie.
The astrolabe is a computer, a calculator, a perfect measuring mechanism based on a geocentric, stationary model of the Earth. This piece of artistic and scientific brilliance needs no accolade, nor pomp or circumstance to announce its own craftsmanship, for its modern-day workability itself proves the genius of its design. A very profound question we must ask ourselves is, if the sun is traveling at roughly 500,000 miles an hour, and the Earth rotates around it at roughly 66,000 miles an hour, how is it even possible to map and track the same set of stars for thousands of years? If we are to assume that the ancients created this calculator with a complete lack of understanding the true heliocentricity of our solar system, and merely created this calculator of the heavens as understood from their perspective and viewpoint, how is it possible they could have crafted such an instrument that maintains such precision over thousands of years? To somehow think that an instrument of such a high and accurate degree of calculability merely works today out of dumb luck or by accident is rather obtuse. Whoever created this instrument, whatever culture or person made it, their knowledge and ingenuity has withstood the test of time. It would seem that the heavens and the working of its cycles have been known and measurable for a very, very long time.
The problem is that the earliest surviving dated astrolabe is dated as 927 BCE. That's just a bit over 1,000 years ago. You cannot say that astrolabes have accurately worked for thousands of years when the oldest one you could test is barely 1,000 years old. On the other hand, ancient star maps tell a different story. The star chart that appears on the Farnese Atlas has been accurately dated to about 125 to 55 BCE. The reason that this star map can be dated is because astronomers were able to use star precession to determine what year the star map represents. Only last year was the process used to try to determine the date of a star map found in the Ketora tomb. While researchers haven't agreed on a year, the fact that star precession can be used at all demonstrates that ancient star maps do not match modern star maps. This makes your claim that stars haven't changed a falsehood. The same can be said for the North Star, as stars like Kochab have held the spot of polar star from 1500 BCE to 500 CE. Before that, the star Tuban was the North Star. The star Gamma Cephei is to be our next polar star, predicted to inherit the spot in 3000 CE. While neither you nor I will be around to see this prediction come true, the fact is that unlike flat Earth research, real research leads to predictive models of reality. Like the Cavendish experiment and Foucault's pendulum, we can use these tools to make predictions, which is something that no flat Earth model has been able to do. Its predictive capabilities is what makes globe Earth models such a strong candidate for reality. And since I actually did research, you'll find links to where you can learn more in the description. Marty spends the last 20 minutes of his video masturbating to the sound of his own voice and says absolutely nothing worth talking about. Marty, do you know what I found most fascinating about you? You hype yourself up, and honestly, you do a great job at it. When I first watched your video, I was genuinely excited to see what you would present. I was disappointed by the end result, but you did a great job at paying lip service to the scientific method, skepticism, and integrity. Which is why I find it even more hilarious to show how much of a dishonest bitch you are. You poison the well, you quote mine, and even though you pretend to do research on the subjects you present, you clearly have no idea about the basic facts of the things that you are talking about. Even though you claim to be skeptical, you accept flat Earth claims at face value.
In the end, Marty, you turned out to be quite the little bitch.